Miracles We Have Seen, Chapter 2, reproduced with the permission of the author. The Miracle of Winona. My wife is a miracle lady, not just because she is a great wife, mother, grandmother, teacher, and missionary, but also because of the many miracles that have happened in her life. Winona Lou Moody Terry was born in Terre Haute, Indiana in 1930 during the Great Depression and was abandoned by her mother when she was an infant. She never saw her biological mother again and was given to her grandmother, Mrs. Lucy Jane Irons Moody. During Winona's early childhood, she lived in abject poverty with her Shawnee Indian grandmother. During those early years, Winona had only one real friend, and that was her aged grandmother. There were many times when Winona felt unloved and unwanted. Sometimes she felt the dark, searing pain resulting from being sexually abused by an older relative. But there was one person she could turn to for comfort and solace. That was Grandma Irons Moody. One morning, little Winona awakened to discover that Grandma had died in her sleep during the night. The two of them shared the same bed. Winona was devastated. Her world seemed to come to an end. To whom could she turn in times of sorrow, fear, and pain? Life seemed so cruel and cold. To make matters even worse, Winona was not allowed to see her dead grandmother or to attend the funeral. She never knew where the body was buried. Life was difficult and lonely. Her father, caught in the throes of the Great Depression, had very little to offer his young daughter, but she never lost hope. She dreamed of being a part of a family, of being loved and comforted. Life became somewhat better for Winona as the years passed. Her father, Roy Thomas Moody, obtained a job, remarried, and was able to provide a home for Winona. Now Winnie had a home and a mother, and what a mother she was. Frida Mae Moody became a tower of strength and refuge in Winnie's life. But Winona never forgot her dead Shawnee grandmother, who was taken from her so abruptly. There would always be an aching void in her heart. Questions were always in her mind as to where they buried her grandma. In years to come, she would reach many milestones. She became a fine student and cheerleader at Honey Creek High School in Terre Haute, Indiana. She graduated from high school with honors and enrolled in Union Bible Seminary, where she planned to become a missionary in Cuba. In her senior year of seminary, September the 15th, 1951, Winona and I were married. From this union were born 4 wonderful children, Deborah, Stephen, Marcia, and Melissa. One of Winona's greatest milestones in life has been her 7 grandchildren, Mindy, Christina, Josh, Buddy, Crystal, Stephanie, and Isaac. Her dream of becoming a missionary to Cuba was never fulfilled. Nevertheless, she did become a fine missionary to other parts of the world, such as Chile, Bolivia, China, and South America. She has ethnic grandchildren in all 4 colors who call her names such as Mama-san, Abuela, Nana, and Grandma. These achievements have brought great joy and fulfillment to Winona, but she has never been able to find total peace and closure from the loss of her precious grandmother, who was taken from her when she was a tiny, frightened child. She carried this heaviness in her heart for more than 60 years. She prayed many times for deliverance. In spite of great happiness in many other areas of her life, This was a heavy burden and a deep secret that she kept hidden from everyone. That is, until the day that the Spirit came to set her free. It happened one bright spring morning in 1997. We were about to leave for an assignment in Shenzhen, China. After we returned some 6 weeks later, we would move to Jamaica as full-time missionaries. As we drove across an unfamiliar road that we had randomly selected, we began to reminisce about her childhood. We were driving from Terre Haute to Bedford, Indiana, where our daughter Debbie lived. We were to share a meal together with her and her husband, Albert Estes, before we would depart in a few days to the Orient. Winona began to talk about her early childhood. I had heard only bits and pieces of those early traumatic years. There had been times when she needed comfort and support, when these memories would momentarily overwhelm her. Today she shared about Grandma Irons Moody. Then somberly she disclosed some details of her death and about the unrequited sadness that surfaced from time to time. "I wish I knew where she was buried," she said while looking at the passing landscape. "Do you know the town or county where your grandmother was buried?" I asked. I could sense the aching in her heart as she answered, "No, no one has ever told me." Upon hearing that, I suddenly felt a powerful prompting of the Holy Spirit that said, "Pray, ask." I could scarcely believe what I sensed in my own spirit. However, I knew that voice. I had heard it countless times. It was always unerringly accurate. "Winona, we must pray right now. God is going to show us where Grandma is buried." Neither of us knew anything about the unfamiliar countryside through which we were passing. We often enjoyed taking totally unfamiliar roads just for the fun of it. This was one of those days. We both began to pray. We drove and prayed for another 5 miles or so. We had passed through many small villages and towns since leaving Terre Haute an hour earlier. My heart was pumping in anticipation as we drove eastward toward Highway 37, which would then lead us southward to Bedford, where our children live. Then it happened. I will never forget that wonderful moment as the Holy Spirit whispered in my mind, "Jack, the next town is where Grandma is buried." My excitement was boundless as I turned to Winona and said, "We will find her grave in the next town." In moments, we entered the small community of Jasonville. We could see the outline of a white steeple church on the left of our small winding road. Directly across from the church lay a fenced cemetery. I prepared to stop. Then several thoughts flooded my mind. What if I'm wrong? Will this just bring more pain and perhaps disillusionment? I rebuked those thoughts and opened Winona's door. I was certain she was not totally convinced. There were many grave sites in that old cemetery. Some of the tombstones were aged with the stains of erosion of more than a century of time. Neither of us had any idea of where to look, or if the names were still legible on the old markers. "I feel that you should search to the right, following the fence," I said. "I'll go to the left, and we will meet on the far side." She began the search that actually had started more than 60 years earlier. A lonely, abandoned little girl searching for a precious memory. I continued to pray as we scanned one tombstone after another. In about 10 minutes, I heard Winona scream, "I found my grandmother here. She is." I walked as fast as I could maneuver through the sea of tombstones. Winona's face was shining with joy and happiness. We hugged in celebration. Then we prayed. Winona buried her grandmother that spring morning in Jasonville. And then, as we prayed, it seemed that great burden rolled off her shoulders, and a wonderful peace entered her mind and spirit. We both committed Grandma into the safekeeping of Jesus, and we both promised to meet her again one day where there will never be any more tears, heartaches, cemeteries, or lonely, broken-hearted little girls. Perhaps you have some painful memory that you need to bury in the great sea of God's love and forgetfulness. Why not have someone pray with you so that you too can find closure and peace of mind?